Okay, let's start our introduction to 3D animation in Blender course. We've got our default cube. There is a panel on the bottom called timeline. If you press it over here, you can see that it's a timeline. It will indicate what kind of animation there are on the object and how to manage them. So the first thing, if you press the spacebar button, you can see that the animation is playing and stop when you press one more time. And it goes on, start and stop. It depends how you installed the Blender, because sometimes it's possible that your spacebar button will work other way. If you go to preferences and key map, and then you can see the spacebar action on the right. So in my computer there is a play option selected, but you can have tools or search chosen. My advice would be to press the play, as it's probably the best for animating. So I will close this and switch to animation workspace. If you press here, you got some additional windows and panels that will be very helpful with animation. So here we have a dope shit panel, which is probably more helpful than the timeline that we saw in here. Why? Because we will see some little dots every time we add some keyframe. What is a keyframe? So keyframe is something that will tell our object to change something or to do something. So let's say we would like to achieve some movement, maybe along the x-axis. I will go to the front view by pressing 1 on numpad key, and let's say this is our starting point, which is 0, 0, 0, and we would like to shift our cube to -6, like so. Of course, we didn't make any animation yet, we just moved that cube there, but we will do it in a second, so I will clear it for now. And of course, we have to set our frame first. So let's say our animation will start from the same beginning, which is 0. We'll change that later, but I'm doing it by purpose, so I will show you something later on. So I set it on the frame number 0, and we need to input some keyframe. So we'll press the right button and choose insert keyframe, and we can see straight away that there is a shortcut I. So I press it and we have some options to choose from. I think that these options on the bottom are not that important at the moment. We'll focus on the ones which are on the top. Location, rotation, scaling are 3 major ones that you will use a lot during this course, and some of those options which are variation of these 3 mentioned before. It depends what exactly you want to animate. If you want to animate only location, then of course you will choose that one. Rotation or scaling the same. But if you do all 3, like location, rotation and scaling at the same time, then we will choose lock, rot, scale, which is easier, faster and the best thing to do. But to make it simple, we'll just stick to location for now. So I press location, and as you can see, we've got some dots appeared on our dope shit panel. They are white. When you press on it, they change color to yellow, which means they are selected. And now we have our keyframe in place. So let's say we want to move our cube to the left, and we want this movement to take 10 frames to finish. So we'll start on frame 0, and then it will go through and stop on frame 10. So we have to set it first before we will insert some keyframe. And now we can shift our cube to the left. So G, X, -6. We can add another keyframe so we will create some animation. I will use a shortcut I and select location. Now if we move to the left or to the right, we can see that animation is working fine. So if I press the spacebar now, we see that our cube moved to the left and stopped. And now our timeline or dope sheet indicator is moving to the right. Why there is 250 frames on this window? It is there because it's set in these options below. We start on frame 1 and we finish on the frame 250. We don't need that long. We need only about 30 for now, just for the purpose of this lesson. So I will change it to 30, and as you can see, the other part is grayed out and we have only 30 frames active. The other thing is that we have our keyframes set on frame number 0. And here we can see that our animation start is set on frame 1, which is not exactly the same as here. It should be the same. Why? Because for now it all works fine. But if we render this animation, it will render from the frame 1. And here we have it set from the frame 0. So it means that this first frame will be skipped. And we don't want to do it. We want to make it the same. So we will grab by G and move it to the frame number 1. So now it will start from the frame number 1 and it will be exactly the same as we have it set over here. So let's play our animation by pressing spacebar and see that it moves to the left. Of course it stops on the frame 10 because it's what we set it to do. Let's say that this cube is moving too fast. We want it to go slower. We want it to go to the -6, but to take more time to achieve that position. How can we do it? We should give it more frames, more time. How to do it? We will grab the end position keyframes and give it more time, give it more frames, G, and we'll move it to 30. Now if we go to the beginning, so it's frame 1, and press spacebar, it will move to the end position, but it will move much slower. It should go like 3 times slower because previously it took 10 frames, but now it's taking 30 frames, which is 3 times as much. Why we have these 4 dots in here? It is because we have all the options visible. If we go up, you can see that our dots are disappearing. Here's our object, which is this cube, and there is one cube on it. If we expand it, we'll see that there is a cube action, and if we expand it even more, we can see that we've got some transforms on it, because we can animate plenty of stuff. At the moment we're dealing only with transforms, and if I expand it even more, we can see that we have a lot of dots, and each dot is assigned to different options like location X, Y and Z, and we can move it or change it so it's slightly different, but we'll cover that later. At the moment you just found out how to move object, how to move it position, and how to insert some keyframes, how to do it, and how to change the duration of the animation and how to make it quicker or slower. I would like to show you how to move our cube from position -6 to 6 on the arc. So I press play and it goes nicely, making an arc to the end position, and it turns 360 degrees along its y-axis. So let's do it. I will clear it all, so I will select everything and press delete, delete keyframes, and I will reset its position by short key Alt G and Alt R, which will clear the rotation. So just to remind you that we are not in the layout workspace but in animation workspace. So I click on it. How do we start? So the first thing, we will set our animation start on frame 0 for now, and here we have to do the same. So we'll put 0, and here instead of 250, as probably you've got it, just press or type 30, because we don't need our animation to be any longer. 30 frames is just enough, and we have it all set and ready to animate. We want our cube to start from position -6 on x-axis, so I will move it to that position. I will type -6. It's all fine, so I will press I and choose lock rot, because we want to animate both location and rotation. So I will press this option. Okay, our keyframe is set, and now we want to mark our end position and rotation. So I'll go to frame 30 and move our cube to the right. We want it to be on 6 positive, and we want it to rotate 360 degrees along its y-axis. If I move it a bit, we know it's y-axis. Of course, you can rotate it however you like it, but just for the purpose of this lesson, I want to rotate it along the y-axis. So I'll type 360 in here. Actually, you can't see it how it changed, because it came back to its original position or rotation, but it changed a lot, and you'll see it in the animation. So we can see that 2 fields has changed. You can see the different colors in it, and we can make it quicker by pressing I and choosing lock rot, but I want to show you some other way. We can just hover over this field and press I, and hover over this position and press I as well, and it's all set, and the result is pretty much the same. So it's good to know this, because in the future we'll animate plenty of stuff, and this way might be much easier. So I go back to position 0, and as you can see, it moves to the right and rotate as we would like it to do. Now we want this cube to go up in the middle of our animation, so I will set it to 15. As you can see, it is exactly in the middle. We will move it up 6 units to make it the same as it was on the sides. So I will type in the location Z6 and we'll press I. We could give it insert keyframes and put lock rot, but I wouldn't like you to do it, because we already set our location and rotation on the beginning and on the end. When it comes to the rotation, we have only 2 keyframes set for it, and it's on the beginning and on the end. You see, there is 3 lines for each rotation, X, Y, and Z. And here we have 3 lines for location, X, Y, and Z. And we have 3 keyframes for it, the beginning, the middle, and the end. So we need all 3 to have it like the arc, but we need only 2 keyframes for rotation, the start point and the end point. So we don't have anything in the middle here for rotation, because it's already set. We don't need to add anything extra, and we shouldn't actually. We go to the beginning, we press spacebar, and we can see that it makes a really nice arc, and our animation is done. This time we are going to make some basic scaling animation. So I'll show you how the end result will look like. So I press the spacebar, and we can see that our cube is increasing, then decreasing, increasing and decreasing again. So we'll make something like this. Let's select it all and delete keyframes. We didn't change any place or rotation, so we don't have to clear it, but probably we need to clear our scale. Actually, we don't have to, but in case you do, just press a hotkey Alt S and it will clear scale. We can set it for the frame 0 and we will need about 60 frames for now, so we can type it here, and we will start from the scale 1. So I press I and choose scaling. Now let's distribute all the keyframes in equal distance, so let's do it every 10 frames. We'll go to the frame number 10 and increase our cube a bit. Let's increase it that much and add keyframe scaling. Now we want to make it smaller, so let's scale it down, scaling, put it on frame 30, scale it up again, but maybe not as much as we did it before. Like that should be fine. Scaling, and the last thing we will set it to 1 once again. We can type it like here 1, then go here 1 and 1, and it will be fine. But there is a shorter way. We can press and hold Shift and just slide it down, so all 3 fields are active, and if we type 1, all 3 fields are filled with value 1. So now we can hover it and press I, so the new keyframe is created. Let's have a look how our animation looks like. If I press the space bar button, it looks pretty good, but I would like it to scale up at the beginning slowly and then speed up later on. So we have to give the first part of the animation a bit more time. So we'll shift the second keyframe to the right, and now if we check it, you can see that it's kind of work, but this gap between the second and the third keyframe is too short, so it looks like it goes down a bit too much. So let's make a bigger distance between them. I will shift it to the right a bit, and maybe the last one we will move it to the left. And now let's have a look. Okay, this is something I wanted to achieve. So we see that we don't need that many frames. The last keyframe is set on to frame 35, so we can set this animation, let's say, to 40 and play it. Let's say we want to change something. We don't like the value of this cube at this moment. We want to make it bigger. So we set our pointer on the frame we want to change and just make whatever you want with the cube or whatever you're working on. Just scale it up as much as you want. Press E again and make a new keyframe. So it will overwrite the keyframe it was here before. And now if we play our animation again, it's adapted and it's working fine. I'd like to show you how to animate basic colors on our object. So our animation will look like this. It will rotate around the Z-axis and it will change some colors. So let's clear it up, delete. I will clear the rotation by pressing Alt and R, and I will clear the color so it stays white. The white color has all the RGB channels set to 1. What we need to do first? First, we want to deal with the rotation. So we want to start with the rotation 0. I will move to this tab where we can see the location, rotation and scale. And at the beginning, we'll insert some keyframe for the rotation. So let's do it. And at the end of our animation, we want to set it to 720 along the Z-axis. So it rotates twice around its axis. I will type 720 and press I. So now if we play animation, you can clearly see that it rotates twice. Okay, now we want to change colors because it's fun, isn't it? So let's move to the Material tab, and here we have a base color which we want to change. We will start from the white color, so we can just press I on it, and we've got some additional values popped up in our dope sheet. We have RGBA channels, which is red, green, blue, and alpha. Alpha is transparency. It won't be changed, so it will stay the same, but there is something I will show in a moment. So we'll move it to 10, let's say, and pick some other color, maybe green. We have green selected, so I'll right click on it and insert keyframe. Next, we will move to 20 and change the color to, let's say, red. I press I. As you can see, I use two methods. Once I just press I, once I right click and choose insert keyframes. There are two ways at least of doing it. So let's go to nearly the last point and select some blue color, press I, hovering over it, and at the very end we will maybe choose some yellow one and press I. Now if I expand it a bit more, you can see that we have some yellow or orange lines connecting our points, our keyframes, like here and here. Here we have alpha channels. If I select it, you can see that they all connected. Why? The thing is that the alpha channel stays the same. It wasn't changed. If we change the color here, the alpha channel, oh, I can't show you that correctly, alpha channel stays on value 1 all the time. That's why this orange line is connecting all these keyframes, because it's constant, it doesn't change. The same thing is here. If we go to frame 0 and check this color, we can see, because here is described that this G channel, which is green, if we check it on our color, the green is 1. So it stays constant. So if we go here and check our color, we can see that green is still 1. That's why there is this orange line connecting these 2 points. So now I will change it a bit. So it's not 1 anymore, it's not the same. I will go down a bit and now press I. So you'll see that this orange line will disappear. You see? Now it's no more because the values is different. So we'll go to frame 0 and see our lovely animation. I press spacebar and our cube is rotating and changing colors. This time we are going to learn how to adapt or change the velocity of our object movement in the animation. So the first thing we would like to do is go to Animation tab. So we've got some extra features available for us, and let's go to the front view by pressing 1 on numpad, and I think I would like to make an animation of position so that our cube goes from -10 to +10. So on the frame 1 I will go to -10. So type in -10, scale it down a bit so it's all visible in our window, and press I, choose location, and then we'll go to frame 40, let's say, and type +10. So we've got our animation done. It goes from the left to the right. We don't need these extra frames available for us, so I will just type 40 in here. So we have only 40 frames. We have our keyframes in here on frame 1 and 40. So if we play the animation, we can see, or probably we can see that our cube is starting a bit slower, then go faster and then slow down, reaching the end point. I don't know if it's visible, but it might be and it might be not, because the difference is not that big. How can we check it? How can we see that this is really the case? We should add another window. We can do it by placing our cursor between two windows. So we've got a double side arrow and click the right button and choose split area. And we'll choose wherever we want our window to be split. I will move it up a bit and move the bottom panel up as well. So now we have two panels of dope sheet. Of course, we want to change it for graph editor. Graph editor and dope sheet is representation of our keyframes, but it shows a bit different aspects of it. Most of the time probably we will spend on doing in dope sheet, but graph editor is a really powerful tool that I want you to know it, and now we'll get some basic of it. So I will scale it down, and as you can see there is a timeline on top of it. So we go from the frame 1 to the frame 40. So let's have a look. When I move our indicator, it moves from the left to the right, and the same applies to the dope sheet because it's the same, just showed in different way. What's different about it, we've got some spine lines or curves, and we've got vertical axis. And on vertical axis there will be some values that we want to animate. On this horizontal one there will be frames, the time, but on the vertical one there will be the values we are working with. So at the moment we are working with the position, location, because we move our cube from left to right and from -10 to +10. So we have -10 and 10 here. Of course, if we zoom in or zoom out, we will get some bigger values, but it will be hard to operate on it. So we should scale it accordingly so that we can see clearly what's happening on our screen. I will move it up a bit so it's better visible. Look at the spines. It looks like it goes pretty much horizontal for the beginning, which means it goes a bit slower, and then the slopes go more vertical, which means the cube is speeding up. The more vertical line, the speed is higher, and at the very end it slows down as well. How to understand it? Because it might be a bit difficult to understand at the beginning. So just imagine, here is the location, and look at the timeline. We need like 5 frames to go from -10 to, I don't know, -9, it will be here. So we need 5 frames to make 1 unit. And here, if we look at this point, we have here like -4 in the position. So our cube, if we go over here, so we see that our cube is on position -4, and it needs 5 frames to go to nearly 0. So there's 5 frames to make our cube go nearly 4 units to the right. So that's why we know that the speed is much bigger than the speed that we had in here, because it can take 3 or 4 as much in the same time. I know it might be a bit difficult to understand it at the first time, but we'll do some examples in a second, so it will be much easier, and we will repeat doing it in the future. So we'll get back to it, and I'm sure you will get the concept very soon. I want to make it so that it starts slowly, as it is here, and it will speed up from that point. It will just go really quick at the end. So we will leave the first point as it is for now, and we will manipulate the end point. We need to make this slope like nearly vertical. How to do it? We can grab the end point of it and use the shortcut G. If we do something like that, we won't achieve that goal, because as you can see, I'm going to the left. This horizontal line is getting even more horizontal, so it means it will even slow down, so it's not the point. We need to make it more vertical like that. So now look, we need about 20 frames to move our cube from -10 to about -8. So it's really slow. And then we need another 20 to move for the rest of the positions. We will achieve our goal doing our spline like that. I will press the space bar and it starts slowly and then speed up. That was the case because the line is more vertical. So now let's make it opposite. So we will start off really fast and then slow down at the very end. So we have to manipulate the first point, so it's pretty much vertical. So I will move it to the left for now, and then we'll manipulate the end point. So we'll make it more horizontal like that. Maybe I'll try to make it even more vertical by moving it like that. So let's give it a try. I will play, and yes, it starts off really quick and then slows down really nicely at the end. I want to add some extra point in the middle. We'll go to frame 20 because it's in the middle, and I will give it another keyframe for location. So you can see we've got some extra keyframe in here in the sheet, and we've got another Bezier handles in our graph editor. And let's say we want to start off slowly, then go to some point, go back a little bit, and then go off to the right. How to do it? I want you to remember this. On the vertical line, we've got our locations. It goes from -10 to 10 as we said it, but it doesn't mean we can't go over it. We can. If we, for example, starting off from here slowly, and then we go to that point, but if I move it over 10, then it will go over 10. Like you can see here, it's 11:36. We can do it because it's our animation representation. So it's the same thing as we would change some values in here and just press I. It's pretty much the same. So now we go over 11, and now I want it to go back. So we have to rotate it like that. I scale it like that and maybe move it. I will click on this handle and do something like that. So before I press play, I want you to understand it. I click on X location. So we start off pretty much slow. We go up, so we change our position from -10 to about 11. Here's our peak point, and then we go down in position, so we move back to about 5 on X axis, and then go to the right again to 10. Let's have a look. I play the animation. We go, well, like that. So understanding this concept is really important because graph editor is really powerful. If you don't get it just yet, don't worry, we'll get some more examples and I'm sure you'll get it. But that's the most important thing I couldn't figure out at this very beginning when I was learning it. You have to remember that this is these values that we're working with, and if it goes up, it's increasing. If you go down, it's decreasing. And these points are representation of all the values we set keyframe, and we can do it both way. Like if I go to 20 where we've got our keyframe in here, and if I change it to like 10 again, and press I, it moved down because it's the same, just showed in other way. This time I'd like to show you how to make a linear rotation around Z axis so that it looks like this. We can use it for displaying some character. I think you saw it before where some character were put on some kind of base and it's being rotated so that it shows the character from each side, and we can make it ourselves. So let's create a new project and do it ourselves. So I will switch to animation mode and go to the front view. I will create some cylinder. I will scale it along Z axis, put it down a bit and scale it excluding the Z axis now. I will apply the scale and parent the cube to our cylinder. It's pretty much done. You can see that when we rotate the base, the cube is being rotated as well. So now it's time to make some animation. We go to the frame, maybe let's start from frame 0. So put it on 0 and make the first keyframe with rotation. I think we can go to the frame 36 because we want to rotate 360 degrees, so it makes a full circle, and we'll make another before we make another keyframe we want to rotate it, so we put 360. And now I will make our animation smaller so that we have only frames that we need, and we play the animation. If you notice, we rotate our cube in the way where at the beginning it speeds up and then slows down and it stops and starts the animation all over again. This is not what we want to achieve. We want to have this rotation constant at constant speed without slowing down and anything. So let's go to the graph editor. I hope you understood, but if not, I'll try to explain this once again. We have a timeline here where it shows our frames, and on the vertical axis we have the value we're working with. At the moment we're working with rotation along the Z axis. There might be some other axes as well, it doesn't matter. Just the point is to understand what these values means. They mean the value that we work with. We work with degrees. And we start from 0, so it's 0 here. And when we go to the last frame, keyframe, we've got 360. This is our max value. So what do you think? What will be the peak value of our Bezier curve? Yes, it will be 360. If we zoom out, maybe I'll do it this way. The peak point is on 360 because our max value is 360. I hope you understand it because it's pretty much important. So at the moment you can see we have a Bezier curve and it won't allow us to make constant linear animation. We have to change it. How to do it? First we will select our axis, so it's Z rotation, and then we will click right and choose linear. we've got a Bezier curve, and now we will click right and choose linear. First, we need to select our keyframes on the Z Euler rotation. So I double clicked on it, and we right click and choose interpolation mode. Now we have a Bezier, but we need linear. So I click linear, and we see that our Beziers are gone now. So if I press spacebar, it goes with the constant speed. But if you notice, there is a point where our cube freezes for a second. Not for a second actually, but it is like a small part of a second. Why it is happening? I'll go back to the dope sheet to explain it more clearly. So if my computer just froze. No. Oh, okay, it's fine. So we go to the frame 0. If we go to the next frame, we see that the incremental of our degrees is 10. We go to the second one, it's another 10, another 10, 40, 50, 60, and so on. Every frame we get another 10 degrees. So on the frame 0 and on frame 360, on the frame 0 and on the last frame, we have our object in the same position. I know here is 0 and here is 360, but it doesn't matter. It looks like it's the same, isn't it? It is. So we have two frames where there is no change in value. They're the same values. That's why we see this short freeze in the movement. So we have to get rid of it. We can't make a full turn as it is. We have to stop or break our animation in this point where it's 350, because if it stopped right here, it will go straight away from the beginning and set our object in the right position. I don't know if it's clear or not, but just believe me, it is so, and after a while you will get it why. The thing is how to make it. If we move it to the left, it doesn't matter, it's still 360, just it will spin a bit faster. So we'll go back as it was, and if we want to break this animation in this point on this value, we will just make another keyframe. So press I and press rotation. So we have some keyframe here with 350, and we don't need the last keyframe. So let's delete it. Delete the keyframe, and our animation is pretty much good. We will change the value. And now if we play it, there is no freezes. It works as it should. The thing is that you might think that our cube is rotating left and our wheel is rotating right. At least it's how I see it. So is it really like that? No, it's not. They both are rotating the same direction. I will prove it. I will just go to the edit mode and insert some faces like that. I will switch to face select mode, select all the ring around it, and we will choose, maybe I will add some new material first and change the color of it to red. And now we'll choose checker deselect to make it like every other one and assign material to it. So now you can see it's different, and if we play our animation you can see that everything is spinning in the same direction. This is just the optical view that it's different. So sometimes it's good to do something like that to be sure that we're doing the right thing. And yes, it's working fine. Everything is okay. So you learned how to change interpolation mode. We just click right and go to interpolation mode and change it from Bezier to linear. If we do constant, this is not something you want to do, at least not at that point, because as you can see, there is no change all for the 35 frames, and in the last frame there will be a constant change, like rapid change. Let's have a look. Nothing changes and then quick, you see, like very rapid change. This is not what we want. So we change it to linear, and you can change it to Bezier, so you have this nice and smooth animation, but this is not the case in the example we want to provide at this moment. This is something we wanted to achieve. And at the very end, I will just remind you how to make animation slower or quicker. This is pretty much easy. We can just slide our endpoint to the right if we want our wheel to spin slower, like that. Or we can move it to the left if we want our wheel to spin really, really fast. And that's it. Let's learn how to copy some animation from one object to another. So let's go to Animation tab, and we'll make some easy animation for our cube. So I put rotation keyframe, then in frame 20 maybe we have rotated along Y axis like that. Press I, and then we will rotate it along Z axis like that. So our animation should look like this. And now we want to create another object. Let it be the cone. Move it to the side, and let's try to copy the keyframes. I will right click and choose copy. Now click on the other object and click the right button and paste. Unfortunately, we can't do it. We have the warning, no selected F-curves to paste into. What does it mean? You have to be aware that there are only keyframes. They hold some values of, this quantity that we want to change. So in this keyframe, we hold this 0, 0, 0. In this keyframe, we hold 0, 1, 42, and 0. But to be honest, it doesn't really know, the keyframes doesn't really know what object they belong to. They can't be just copy and paste like that. They are connected with the things we have on the left. You see, there is a cube action, which is really important. We can't animate anything without the action. So we can't really just copy and paste. We have to create this action for another object first, so we can copy it. So let's go to the cone and create this action. We can simply just make it easy. We can just add a new keyframe and choose rotation, because this is what we're working on. This is, we should use the rotation because this is what we've got in here. So we have the same quantity in our cone. Now, if we copy it, we can freely paste it, so it will override this first frame that we already had. And if we press the spacebar button, you can see that our animation is being played on both objects. So it is working fine. The thing to remember is we need an action for each of object to be able to do an animation. Let's do something more. I want this cube to go back to this original position. So it goes to the right and then move, and now I want it to go reverse. How to do it? I'll copy all the keyframes, I'll paste it and click right, click mirror and by time over current frame. And now I'll move it to the right. So now when we play it, it goes back to its starting point. We can copy everything now and paste it for our other object, like go to the frame 1, paste it, and all the keyframes that were already here were overridden by the new ones. And as you can see, all the objects has changed, the animation is different. If we want to create more objects, we can simply duplicate them by clicking Shift D and moving it to the side. We can do the same with the cube, and now if we play our animation, they all will move the same.